Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube. It's been a long time coming. You guys miss me because I certainly miss you. And who have we got in the building?
The one and only X-Twilly. And you guys know what? This video wouldn't have even happened if I didn't rope this girl in. I told her, you need to get back on the YouTube game. She's been slacking.
The last video that I uploaded was around about a month ago.
But you went to Malta and you dragged it out for 3 weeks.
No, I've uploaded since then. The last video that I done was what I spent in a week. And that was quite interesting actually. I've just been running around, being preoccupied with the...
She's been getting some D.
Oh, I don't know about the D. I ain't getting no D trying to get the D, okay?
Going on dates every week.
I said that this is an area of my life that I really wanted to focus on, dating, because I've reached that milestone where I'm like, girl, you're an old hand, you need to focus on this. And then I booked a date nearly enough every single week. This is another story time for a dating time, so we're not going to go and delve into that. But today we got another interesting video. You guys know how much you love my video time.
Yes, this one was actually highly requested.
So we did a story time months ago. When I looked at back, it's 4 months ago, about my immigration process, and we thought we'd do a continuation regarding to part 2.
Again, if you guys haven't seen the first video, go and watch that. But this is way before my time. I was born and I was alive, but I was really young, so I don't remember a lot of it. I actually don't remember a lot of my past, probably because there was a lot of trauma. Probably we should be going to therapy to sort this out, but we're here talking to you guys.
And it's always good when you remember all these moments, because all of that builds up to become who you are today. That says the fucking looks beat in this fucking video, and here I am in the basic picture over here.
You need to vote back, girl. When it's too close, you see all the balls.
We are going to start the story time regarding the second part of my immigration story, because I think it's always so heartfelt to know where you came from and be a humble bitch.
The stories that we're gonna tell you today, it is quite sad. We didn't have the best upbringing ever, but there is a silver lining, because I feel like we turned out to be decent human beings, you know?
Oh, it's still early days to say about that yet. I still question my morals at times.
But it just goes to show, no matter where you came from, you, at the end of the day, can always change the outcome, and you have power and you have your own life. Once you kind of leave the nest, it's up to you to kind of build the life that you want to live.
I think when we last touched base regarding to the story of when I arrived here, we arrived in the UK, we was very poor. Now, I wanted to go back in time because there were some elements that I missed in the original story time. So let's try and go back to that time. Now, we're gonna skip back to when my dad actually left Vietnam and my mum was at home. Now, I don't know if you heard of this saying, they always hate the in-laws. It's always the wife at home that has trouble with the mother-in-law. That is such a tradition. It hits back home when my mum was at home. And my dad left to go to Hong Kong, going through the immigration process, trying to get away from this Vietnamese war. And my mum was stuck at home, and she had basically 2 kids.
And also tradition is, in a Vietnamese household, once you get married, you have to move in with the parent.
My mum said that she had a really struggling time when she was at home by herself. My mum, she found out that my dad was sending letters home to my mum. So all this time, my dad's been disappeared for a whole year. She hasn't heard from him. She doesn't know where he's been.
If he's still alive.
If he's still alive, if he found a new wife, if he's ditched her. Later on, she discovered that apparently he was sending letters home. My grandma was hiding all the letters and didn't provide all the letters to my mum. So all that time, she was like thinking he's forgotten about her, and secretly my grandma wanted her to marry another woman somewhere else. She's thinking, my mum, she could just be a slave here. And if he develops another family over there, they're going to be much more developed, and she wanted more opportunities for my dad. It also rewinds to another story. I have an aunt. She is now paralysed and disabled. At the time when she got married to my uncle, the uncle that died from cancer from my...
Oh, it's all connecting.
I did like a little story time regarding to the curse of my family. So that uncle that died, he had a wife. At the time, she was okay. She travelled to her town. When she was in her town, she felt really sick. Back then, it was really hard to commute back and forth because you have a lot of planning involved. The travel and everything wasn't as easy. She was there and she sent letters home to my uncle. And also, my grandma was hiding a letter from the uncle as well.
Oh, grandma, and these letters, girl. She didn't stay away from the postman.
So the auntie, she felt really sick, and all of a sudden she lost all sensation in her legs. So she became bedbound, and she was writing the letters to my uncle saying, oh, can you please come and take me home, because there's no way of me getting home. I haven't got no money. So I'm begging him. And she was like, I wrote to you last time. I haven't heard a response from you. Do you not love me no more? Basically, the uncle didn't know about this. My grandma was reading all these letters, and she was like, you're not coming back.
It's like the evil stepmom.
She's also thinking of, this woman comes back, she can't serve me, she can't be part of the family, there's going to be another burden on this household. And back then, all of them, they live in one household.
Yeah, and you guys have to think, this is back in the day tradition. There was like no internet back then. People thought very traditionally, they thought of this person good for my kid, what can they bring to the family, all that kind of stuff. So we have to kind of think of it as a pinch of salt. Even though now we look back at it and we're like,
My uncle, he defied the parent. Eventually, when he found out this letter, he was like, no, I still love you. He saved up for months to make enough money to go back to her hometown to take her back home. He loves her to bits.
all right, back to mum, girl.
That story links up to my mum. She didn't get the letters, and eventually when she got the letters, that was one of her drive to say, okay, I am actually going
to leave. How did she find the letters?
I don't know, must be something in some drawers or something. She found it somewhere. All I know is she found them in the end.
So then that's when she's like, all right, I'm gonna
go. I'm gonna leave this bitch. What have I got to stay home for? This woman, she's bullying me. My mum has also told me a story when she remembers she went to the market. At the time, she was pregnant with me. My brother, he was already born. She went to the market and my dad was at home. My dad is mummy's boy. Back in the day, whatever the mother say, the husband obeys. And she remembers she came back home like thinking she's had a struggle day at work and she felt so tired and exhausted. So she decided along on her way home, she got a bowl of moon. It's a very cheap, convenient dish in Vietnam. You just take it along the way, you have breakfast.
It's like 20p or something. It's so cheap. Noodles in soup.
So she came back home and all of a sudden my dad came out with like a fucking stick and he started battering her. He was like, so you went out, you spent all our money. She was like thinking, oh my God, I feel so sad. Back then, once you moved into the in-laws house, there's no way that you can go back home to your mum.
There's no such thing as divorce.
The reason why he was hitting my mum was because my grandma was saying to my dad, because the talk of the town, like, I don't know, some neighbours were like saying, oh, this girl, she went to the market and all the money that she earned, she spent it on the food.
She ate by herself. She didn't think about that family. Basically.
Yes. And you have to think, my mum, she was pregnant at the time. Her husband's meant to be loving, providing her all the support. She's been working hard. You're meant to be backing up your wife. But because he heard from his mum to say that, oh, she's spending all the money, she's living a luxurious lifestyle, she doesn't care about this household, he took her word for it and he beat her on the way back. And she said that that was the most like saddest moment of her life. She felt that all she had was this family and all she had was him, and she still remembers it to this day. So that's when mum decided, okay, I've had enough. I'm going to basically immigrate. I'm going to try and find this boat, go to Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Whatever is there for me.
Watch the last Storytime. When they got reunited, talk about when you arrived to the UK.
When we arrived here, you don't initially get placed in your permanent home straight away. They normally put you in a temporary accommodation. And at the time, the temporary accommodation that we had was provided in a place called Oxford, near Oxford University. They put all the immigration family in there. So you had like a massive house and each of the rooms belonged to each of the family. I remember it quite being a fun time. When they put you all in that location, they was wanting to train all the people, teaching you English, telling you about how the life was like in the UK, slowly getting you used to England way of life and just preparing you. We stayed there for around about a year to 2 years. I can't remember exactly.
How old was you?
When I came here, I was around about 8 years old. I didn't even go to school then. Maybe they taught me something I can't clearly remember. Finally, they placed us where we were living for majority of our life. We stayed there for around about 10 years. At the time, what they tend to do is they place all your families or the whole community in the building together. People are living all locally around.
Cousins were nearby, so that was quite fun.
That was the most closest time that I felt closest to my cousins. Yeah. Now that we live so far apart, I feel that everything's like distance. When you want to see family, you have to arrange. Back then, it was just like knock on the door and literally everything's at your doorstep. And you just felt so much more closer. Whenever we had a social event, they just pop round. It was so much more easy and convenient. When we came here, we came from a very poor background. My mum and dad didn't understand English. They didn't have no skill sets. So the only sort of industry that they can go into, which is massive, the Vietnamese community when they arrived in the UK, was sewing. I remember there used to be this guy, I don't know how this community know about this industry, but there was this guy that come and deliver textiles to you. So we had like 4 sewing machines inside this flat of ours. So there were 3 bedrooms, but one of the bedrooms we had to convert it into a room where we fully sewed. And obviously mum and dad's bedroom, and then all the kids stayed in one of the bedrooms. First it was just me and my brother, then slowly they turned act before then.
Oh, I popped out.
I started sewing from a very, very young age.
This is child labour here.
I started sewing at the age of 10, I would say. My daily routine every single day. After I come home from school, it was around about 4 p.m. I had around about 45 minutes to have like a packet of noodles. Then I have to go in and sew. And I have to sew until 9 p.m. And when 9 p.m. came, my mum would go and start making dinner. Me, my brother and my dad would continue to sew while my mum makes dinner. We have a set time to eat our meal. Back then, it is all about men. The men was like the king of the household. So I would have to sit there and wait until my dad finishes dinner, sit there and wait patiently. I have to serve him tea after. It's like a little ritual that we had to do. You couldn't even just run upstairs and then wait for your dad to finish eating. You had to sit by the table. We had a very orderly, functioning way of doing things. That this is how everything needs to be done on a daily basis. Very
because
routine.
my dad was really strict.
After we have dinner, I had to go and fold the clothing. Anything that we sewed and finished for the day, I had to fold it nicely, bundle it up for the next day for my dad to take it to the factory. After I've done that, I would go up and do my homework. I would go to sleep at around about 11, 12 at night time. And my brother, it was even more strict for him. He didn't even have time to do his homework. He didn't really care about that as well because it was kind of drummed into our mentality. You know, the more money that you make for this household, we needed this money to survive. It was just a regular routine. I felt that I didn't even have a life. I didn't know anything outside of this little box that I know. It affected so many areas of my life because I feel like I was hiding a lot of things. Obviously, when you're coming from that background, we couldn't tell people that we were sewing. My parents said to me that if we did, social care would take us away from our parents. This is just our daily life and we just felt paranoid that we couldn't say anything. I created this false illusion to my friends that I was like more rich and wealthy than I was.
No one wants to admit that they're living in a council house.
On benefits as well. We were sewing clothes for quite well-branded companies like Karen Millen, Debenhams, obviously because we couldn't afford clothing. So anytime that they sew a pair of trousers or a skirt that was within my size, or my mum and dad would adjust it and I would wear that to school, kids would be like, oh my god, where did you get this trousers from? And I'm like, I got it from Karen Millen.
I sewed it myself in my council house.
Obviously I painted that illusion that, oh yeah, I bought this for £100, knowing what the retail price is. Isn't it really sad now that I think about social media and this is how we portray the image? People only see what information you put out there.
It's true.
They don't know what is behind closed doors. I was suffering all this time. We had to go to boot sale to buy stuff. Nothing was brand new.
Yeah, everything was always second hand, wasn't it?
Now I'm proud to buy things secondhand. Back then, it was something to be quite ashamed of. I remember when we used to go to the boot sale, I used to be so careful. I'm like, I'm scared I'm going to see my friend here. I'm scared I'm going to see other people that know me. I wanted to hide it. But if you think about it, I'm like, why are you hiding it? If they're in the same location, they're in the same state as you.
I remember you were saying that you didn't even know what a birthday was.
This is all that we know and we thought that we had to contribute to this household.
Well, everyone must live like this.
But obviously there was something that's nudging my mind thinking it's not right, because otherwise if I thought everyone lived like this, wouldn't have felt ashamed and wouldn't have to lie about all these things. Also, my dad, he had a gambling addiction. You would have imagined that having your kids, everyone working on a daily schedule, even during the weekend, we didn't have no breaks. I used to think that, oh, I enjoyed the weekdays. You know, people were looking forward to weekends. I was dreading the weekends because I know that it'll be a very long day. From 8 a.m. all the way until 11 p.m, I'll be sewing all the way through. Whereas other people, they look forward to the weekend where they say, I've got no school, I'm having a break, I can enjoy myself. Whereas I felt like during the weekday, I had a break from that life that I was living. When I was going to school, I was creating another illusion of how my life was, envisioning in my mind that, oh, this is the fun times that I have. So you know when people used to always call in sick to say, oh, I didn't want to go to school. For me, I was like, this is a getaway from my daily life.
You want to go to school.
When you think about that, it's quite sad because I think, oh my God, my sister, she fucking said she bucked all the time. I'm like, this is the time of my life. My dad had this mentality where everything, single penny that we made, he wanted to send it home to give his family at home a better life. So every time we receive a phone call in Vietnam, I would dread it in my mind. My mom also think they're always calling to say someone's sick, someone's gone to hospital, someone wants to fucking build a brand new house. Every one of his family will take it in turn to say, I want to build a house. The people abroad would work their arse off to save up this money to send home and build build a brand new home for each member. Over the last 20 years, we built like 5 houses for different family members. And this is not no cheap housing. It may be cheap in UK terms because you could never afford that in the UK for that price. And you know how much you have to work hard for that.
I always remember mum and dad arguing.
My dad is the man of the household. We just had to listen to what he say. And that caused a lot of conflict amongst my mum and my dad. There's that friction, that dreaded phone call when every time the family calls. Alongside this, my dad also had a gambling addiction. Now, I don't know if you know about the Vietnamese culture, but if you go to the bookies, girl, you always see the Asian people in the background.
It's 90% Vietnamese.
And the casinos, it was his thing. On the weekends, they would go to casino. And my mum, she doesn't like gambling, but you can imagine that this is her only way out. She wanted to see him happy, so she was like, okay, I will come with you. But she doesn't gamble. She'll sit alongside, be his company. But this is something she looked forward to because she didn't get out of the house. She didn't have friends. She didn't have family around here. And this was her only way of just venting and being outside the household. She would wake up from 7 a.m. And by the time that I go to sleep at 11 p.m, she's still working until 1 a.m.
Yeah. And she still cooks and cleans. I don't know how she did that all.
She is so hardworking. It's on a different level. Alongside that, to have your husband not appreciate you, every pound that you make for this household to make a better life for us, he was sending it home. So you can imagine it's a built up tension. But then she was like, you know, this is all that I have. This is my family here. And they tend to just obey their husband and go by whatever the husband say.
Not these days, honey.
Yeah.
Mama didn't raise no fool.
I remember there was this one occasion when my dad, he came home. And the amount of time that they won, it was like always a big massive celebration. Every time they win, they would come home. They're like, oh my God, I'm going to treat you to McDonald's. And that was just like amazing. So we always find it a thrill and exciting that my mom and dad go casino because there's a chance the next day we could go McDonald's. We were young kids. So when my mom and dad went gambling, they left us home alone. Oh. We had to look after ourselves. I remember there was one time my dad and my mom came home around about 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. There was this massive bus up. At first there was so much joy and excitement. The reason why I remember it so vividly was that night my aunt also gave birth. And mom and dad came back from gambling. And they were obviously a bit distraught about losing in casino.
As it always is with gambling addiction.
Yeah, and it becomes really addictive. I remember it got to a stage where they borrowed a lot of money as well to sustain this life. There was these like money shark people that would lend you money, and because you have this grown addiction, the thrill of winning just takes over. I remember my dad was in debt over nearly around about 100k. That's fucking crazy money, 100k. When you don't have no money and you owe 100k. My dad also wanted this bougie lifestyle as well. So when my dad came home and there was that news where my aunt, she'd just given birth, they were also sad that they lost money that day as well. And then my dad said to my mom at 5 o'clock in the morning, my auntie just given birth. It's this tradition where you have to boil some eggs. You have to have like coloured rice to bring it to hospital and give that as your first welcoming present. So my mom went into the kitchen, she boiled the egg and she made the rice. She packed it all up and everything. She said, okay, let's go. And this was around about 6 a.m. They're going to visit my auntie in hospital. But when he saw the egg, he got so freaking mad. They have a tradition where they colour the egg in red. And he wanted the egg to be coloured red. And she was like, it is fucking 5 o'clock. Where am I going to find the colour dye to colour the egg red? It is what it is. She'll just appreciate us just being there. And he was like, no, this is defying tradition. You're fucking lazy. She was like, you're asking a bit too much at this time. We're just literally hiding in our room. We hear an argument. We're too scared to get involved. This is not the first time the argument is brewing up. There's been multiple different arguments over the number of years. This one just made such a big difference because I remember just feeling really scared and paranoid. I remember there was a massive bang. My mum was screaming and there was loads of tears and crying. And I remember running to my mum because she was just like in tears and she was crying so much. And then I remember seeing my mum for the first time and she had a massive, when you hit on the skull here, because when you bruise there is no area for that bruise to come out, so it becomes like a massive lump right on the forehead. And when I remember I saw my mum and the blood that was involved, I was just so scared and shocked. we didn't go to hospital. That was a really sad and pivotal moment because I remember the next day, my mum was saying to me and my brother that we need to pack our bags because we're going to leave this place. The thing is, I'm telling you this one-time story, but there's been a lot of other stories where he has hit her. There's been domestic abuse. But all those times when it all escalated to this, she was like, finally, I had enough, I'm gonna leave. We packed our bags. My mom, she doesn't speak English. So whenever we're going to different locations, I was the one that's interpreting. Being a young girl and interpreting and saying all these things, trying to digress and think about what is happening.
Yeah, how old was you?
I think I was around about 12, 13 at the time. We went to one of the council houses. We had to pull a ticket. And you have to slowly wait there and they line up and they'll sit and interview you to say, why are you homeless? I had to explain the story of what happened to my mom about domestic abuse. And my mom was like so adamant that this is the final time that she's going to stay with him. She's going to leave. Because all the other times there's been arguments, but we never packed our bags and left. And this time was actual time that I thought, oh my God, it's really going to happen. Me and my brother and you was also there as well.
I don't remember any of this. I do remember a lot of arguing, a lot of domestic abuse.
Eventually, they found us a location that was 30 minutes drive away. We're gonna give you the keys this evening. We haven't got our stuff. It's still at the house. We went home. My dad was, how about I drive you there?
Sweet talk his way back into the panties.
How along the journey they made up.
I was actually watching a TV show called Maid, and it says that it takes women at least up to 4 times to leave until they actually leave.
There's been so many times that's happened. I felt that my mum was never brave enough to leave. She overcome a lot of abuse. I felt that there was not love there. It was just there for the responsibility. This is all she knows. Deep down, I don't feel that she felt loved. She had to survive for us. I do rate her for being such a strong woman. I don't know how I would overcome that. From our council flat, we eventually moved to a different location. This was going to be our permanent home. There was one evening when we was all in the living room after having dinner. My dad was on the phone to someone. You could just hear that the phone conversation wasn't normal and it's threatening. My dad was just shouting across the phone. Next thing that we heard, someone knocking and banging on the door. My dad was like, hide, hide, shh. I can't say anything. My dad eventually opened the door. They were shouting in Vietnamese and saying, we're gonna kill your family. The guy had like a knife. I'm gonna slit your throat. My mom was like coming to the door and like shutting the door so that he couldn't get in. She finally managed to lock them out. They were like, talking through the letterbox. I just remember feeling so petrified. I'm gonna lose my mom and dad. Growing up at night time, I used to always get so scared. I used to cry to myself to sleep every single night. I used to be always petrified and I have like these dreams I won't have a mum and dad. It was like something that I was always petrified of.
What's they arguing about?
Money shark people that came to our house to demand my dad to pay back the loan that he borrowed for his gambling. And obviously we didn't have no money. They were threatening, if you don't pay this within this amount of time, we will kill you.
In the movies?
I know! You think if you had no freaking money, why are you doing this? Yeah. My dad ended up borrowing money from other people to pay back that loan shark. It's a vicious cycle. Do you know how we managed to pay off all that debt? He went to Canada and it was a booming business. Eventually we managed to pay off all that debt. If he didn't move abroad, I think we would have been stuck in the same vicious cycle. So sad when I think of my mum's life. You can understand that the background of my mum, she's always been scared of my dad. If you watched the video regarding to the free curse, my dad had cancer in the end. He passed away. But when I reflect on things, my mum, obviously she felt scared that this was happening. She's gonna lose my dad. But it is so sad to admit that she has so much more freedom now and her life is completely different. Before, she was really scared to be able to vocalise. She'd never step out the house. My mum, she's such an unselfish person. I remember all her whole entire life. She would never spend money on herself. Every single penny, she would give it to us.
Why does it make me sad?
Aww. Tweet's always so emotional.
I know, I don't know why.
She only thinks of us, she never thinks of herself. Like even clothing, all her whole entire life, she never spent any money on herself. Every single penny that we had, she would be like, buy food for us. She never ever thought, I'd rather have these luxuries in life. Now at times I feel really guilty that I can't give her all these other things that she wants in life, and I wish I'd made more money to be able to give her a better life because she sacrificed so much for us. It's so sad to say that since my dad's passed away, she's changed in so many ways.
I mean, think she's a lot happier now.
Isn't that really sad to say that you've lost one parent, but then this other parent has now developed her own wings to be who she wants to be, to have the freedom to say and go out and do things without being scared. Just imagine yourself consistently always being scared about your other half and you don't have no control over what you say. You know when they say that when you're in a domestic abuse, you find it so hard to leave? It's true. I've seen that with my own eyes. I do feel that it has played an impact in my life because it was something that I was willing to accept in my relationship. My first relationship wasn't always the healthiest relationship. I grew up in that environment thinking it's normal, but it's not normal. We do need to also talk about this. Because I know that when I talk about domestic violence, I don't know whether I should talk about it and my experience I went through, because it's such a personal thing, but I feel that we do need to talk about it because my mum is lucky enough to survive all those occasions, but there's been times when I remember my dad has held like a knife to her neck and threatened her. I remember all those times when I felt so scared. It impacted me and where I couldn't sleep and everything because I didn't know what tomorrow brought. But we need to talk about these subjects because it can save a life. Us women, we are not taught to defend for ourselves. We are not taught to vocalise. So I feel that it's important that we do need to be more stronger and stand up, especially in these sort of circumstances.
It's so weird though. I don't remember much of my childhood, but I always remember being scared of my dad. And I remember every time he went downstairs, I'd run upstairs.
It's not just one person feeling this. I felt it. My sister felt it. We didn't talk much, but there was always this sense of fear. I don't know. It's so hard to describe. I feel so wrong for saying all these stuff, but this was my reality. I'm only speaking my truth of what I experienced. The thing was, eventually when he discovered that he had cancer, I can see that slowly he was changing. He was trying to communicate with us better. He was trying to express how he felt. And by then, because of the number of years that we felt so scared of him, that when he wanted to change, it just felt unnatural. So when he came to hug me, my body just naturally stiffened up because I'm like, oh my God, it doesn't feel right. I don't know what it is. You can't pinpoint, but you just feel a certain way. And the sad thing was when he did try to change, it was the last moments of his life. I wish there was more time. Maybe that would have changed our perception and allow us to develop a better relationship. But at that pivotal point in his life, when he wanted to change, it was the last month of his life. So that was a really sad moment. The spin on that is, if you feel that you are doing things wrong and you want to change things, you should do it as soon as possible.
Don't wait until it's too late.
Because it could be too late.
Then you're screwed.
Well, you're dead. Sorry.
Unfortunately, even though when my dad passed away, obviously it was a very sad time, but it actually allowed us to get closer to our mum. It allowed us to get closer as a family. I know there's things that I would never be able to do if my dad was still alive today.
In my mind, I envisioned that the last moment of his life when he was trying to change, that was the starting point. I envisioned that if he was still alive, things would slowly be different now. But that's where we have to stay positive. So if you feel that you are not always the nicest person, reflect on that and think, how can you change? And just because things were tradition doesn't mean they always have to be that way. You are the decision maker in your life.
If you are going through any domestic abuse, obviously it's easier said than done. You deserve so much more.
I don't know if my mum would be able to overcome this if it wasn't for her family, if it wasn't for her kids. She was doing it for her kids. So you really need to surround yourself with people that you love, people that you know, people that encourage you so that you take a stronger step to a better life.
And don't look back. Once you make that decision, don't go back because you're leaving for a reason. So that is it for this story time. Of course, it wouldn't be a story time without Twee shedding a few tears.
I hope you guys enjoyed that little story time regarding to a little background of how I grew up. It was a sad little story. However, you got to see who we've become now. We've become so much more stronger. I think it's brought us closer. When a man treats me a certain way, I'm like, no, I won't accept it. I deserve better. I have boundaries. It's made me definitely a stronger person. You always have to look under the silver lining.
Let us know if you like this story time, even though it's very sad. Maybe you guys can relate to some of our stories. I know domestic abuse,
a very
lot more
sensitive
common
subject
than we think it would be. A lot of things happen behind closed doors that a lot of people don't want to talk about. I hope you guys, take something from this video. If you guys know anyone that's going through this, or you have an inkling, maybe just reach out and just
check in.
Yeah, exactly, because things like this people never show to people.
All my friends wouldn't know this was happening in the background. We only want to show the world what we want them to see. You never know what people is going through. Anyway, thank you guys, and I will see you guys another time.
Hopefully she goes back. Hopefully this video goes even live.
I filmed this, it's 45 minutes, it better go live. Anyway guys, I love you so much and thank you for the love and support and your patience. Make sure you follow my sister on her YouTube.
We literally just finished filming a Pretty Little Thing try on haul, so a little bit more cheery.
Thank you guys and see you next time.
Bye-bye.